No, stop giving me ones!
So
Okay,
yeah,
is my microphone working?
no, it's definitely not working.
Hey, both the microphones are working.
Both the microphones?
Getting tabled.
Getting tabled.
Getting tabled.
Getting tabled.
Getting tabled.
Getting tabled.
With the Bruce and the Yang.
Hello, future people, and you're listening to episode 6 of Getting Table with your host, the Brew.
Hey, that would be me,
And of course, I am George.
the Yank. I'm so waiting for somebody to turn around at some point and take offense to the fact that we're referring to you as the Yank without realizing the actual connotations of where it came from.
Well, a lot of the people that have listened to us in the past, they know the reference of why we call you the Bruce. So I would hope they could extrapolate and wonder why I'm the Yank.
Yeah, I would like to think so.
So reasonably busy week. Oh God. I finished my workbench finally and shared it out, and good Lord, did especially the Age of Sigmar group. Yeah, people received it quite openly as far as being very cool and awesome. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, people seem to like the HTF and white look quite a lot.
So I will say where to go. Where's my favorite comment? It says looks great. Where's the TV?
Yeah, I like that one too.
Which,
now that you've actually had a chance to sit down and use it for a bit, is there any particular part that you like more than the rest, or anything more like the display cases or whatever that you've thought this is even more useful than I thought it was?
so if you go and look at the picture of it, Bruce, so there's the 6 long skinny drawers over to the right.
Yeah.
So I could have gotten away with 3 of those and gone with 6 of the square ones that you see on the very far left. I could have gone with more of those, but there's a huge but there. There's a dividers that came with the long flat shelves, and only 2 of those drawers have those dividers in it. So I had all these divider bits just laying around, and I thought, what am I going to do with these? I don't want to just toss them out. And then I got to looking at them, so I put them together and then doubled them up so they're twice as thick. And I stuck them in the large work in progress case that has the plexiglass front. And so I now have 20 little pockets to stick minis on bases on in those little pockets to increase the storage of the work in progress case.
I hadn't even noticed that. That's nice.
I don't know if I got a good picture of it, and I was like, oh, I got to tell Bruce about this. And then I think I forgot to tell you about it. But yeah, so
It
I
almost
really
looks like
increased
it's
the
a
storage.
reflection of something, and I think that's why it's not so obvious.
Well, yeah, it's a polycarbonate plastic. So with the light and whatnot, it's what you're seeing is a reflection of the long flat shelves in the plexiglass.
Yeah. No, that's a nice touch.
So, and because of this, I've started working on the Iron Wolf Knight more, and so now I have a little pocket for each shoulder pad, each foot, and stuff like that. So I make sure they stay on the correct side and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's I feel very pleased with my moment of brilliance of, hey.
For anyone that's been listening for a while and not picked up on where these pieces are coming from, hobbyzone.pl. That's P for Peter, L for Larry. They're not a sponsor. They're not a nothing. They may not even know we exist. It just happens to be where George has ordered it from. And there was several people that asked across all of the groups. So just again, for anyone that missed the link.
Hobbyzone.pl if you're in Europe, because it's Europe. It's reasonable going from country to country in Europe. In the US, there's hobbyworld.usa or something like that, Hobby World USA. They sell some of the stuff, but then there's a hobbyzone.biz, Bravo India Zulu. It's the American side of the Hobby Zone. So ordering from the Hobby Zone PL, from the US, you have to have a certain amount of weight in order for them to actually ship the order, which means you have to drop, $300-400 to have them shipped to you. Or if you order from the hobbyzone.biz, you can order like 3 sections at a time and slowly build it and not assault your wallet the way Games Workshop does.
Yeah.
And if you live in Australia, you're just out of luck.
Yeah, look, I did find a eBay seller recently that resells a very tiny part of the range, and I do mean tiny. It's pretty much the like the painting trays and the paint racks, and I think that was literally it. But it doesn't. The issue is that if I wanted to order that stuff, and quite frankly, I would love to, it costs me more than double in postage than it does to buy the product. It's insane, which I'm guessing is just the weight of the product. But in saying that, that part of the world is not normally expensive for us. Not normally.
It's CNC cut MDF, so it's quite heavy.
Yeah, being MDF and not just MDF or something would be where most of the weight comes from.
Yeah. And so talk about it a little more briefly. So each kit comes with magnets, 2 for the top, 2 for the bottom, 2 for each side. So you have to be very careful when you're putting magnets in. And then it all just sticks together without having to permanently affix it together. So if you're looking at something, looking at increase storage, highly recommend it. The paint storage, it works great sitting on top like that. It's a good use of space. There are, just by looking, there are better paint rack storage options out there, which hindsight being 2020, maybe I should have gotten one of those so I could store more paint, because I have quite a bit of GW paint and I don't have enough actual storage rack space for it. But I'm also moving in the more of the Scale 75 and Green Stuff World and Vallejo airbrush, dropper styles. So that's why I got more storage like that.
Get some more dropper bottles, empty ones, and move your other paints across. Like, I don't want it. Just do it.
I may do that with contrast as I get more contrast, because we'll talk about that in hobby time. But the regular paint pots, if it's in there, I'm not going to screw with it. I'm not going to mess with it. I don't want to deal with that mess.
No, it's not actually that difficult to do, to be honest. And there's endless sources that show you how to do it if you can't figure out how to pour one bottle into another. But yeah, it's for the Australian listeners that we do have. If you're wanting to find somewhere that has a range of hobby desk organizers, Back to Basics, which I've just linked in the Discord, by the way, George. They have a limited range of the racks and stuff, and it is all you can all magnetize them together and everything, but they don't really have the diverse range that Hobby Zone does, and there's not really anybody in the country that does.
I think it's a new market niche. It's like,
very much so.
We've got this explosion of MDF, terrain, which is just exploding. There's more and more people making it. There's more people doing Kickstarters. I saw one that they're doing a fantasy-based one for those of us who play Sigmar, which look for MDF terrain for a fantasy scenario. Little to none of it out there. So the fact that, people are increasing, their reach and what they're doing, I think it's only just a matter of time before we see more of these MDF companies, because, okay, Hobby Zone does do the CNC cutting. You could probably do it with laser cutting. I will say the Hobby Zone stuff, it's a 1/4 inch thick, approximately. I don't know.
It is quite thick, yeah.
It's a very robust. So, like, for the paint racks, the regular laser cut MDF, that'd be great. Something like, the storage drawers and something like that. Yeah, you probably do want it to be a little thicker. But I think we haven't, the demand hasn't quite gotten there. And I think as Hobby Zone, there's something that a buddy of mine, Don, linked out several months ago. I think it's a Spanish company doing an MDF, hobby desk furniture thing. I think, in a few more months, I think we're going to see more and more companies trying to do this stuff. So maybe Australia will get lucky, and maybe a local source, guy in a shed will start, pumping some of the stuff out for hobbyists in Australia.
There's companies that do paint racks in different styles. and so forth, but not really anything quite as diverse as this. And I know Knights of Dice have been designing some stuff for their own personal spaces, but they're not selling it. But I also know that Knights of Dice have been asked by a few of their customers to let them buy it. So it's possible that maybe some of that might be coming at some stage. I'd have to have a closer look at it for myself to know if it's what I'm looking for. But yeah, it's just, yeah, it's definitely a niche, because there's a lot of people that look at this sort of stuff and kind of go, yeah, but it's already in a box. What's wrong with it? But as our hobby is diversifying, there are some people that just don't want a messy desk. There's enough of that in our hobby as it is. Some people just want to be able to work without having to move everything all the time. So, but each to their own. It's something I desperately want to do, but I have to work on my actual space first, because my space is the bigger issue here.
I will say this: once you have a setup to where everything has its place, it's easier to keep the workspace clean and neat, so you have a space to work when everything has its space to be stored in instead of sitting there after it's been used. So,
yeah, definitely. The other thing we had, Chris from the Dropzone Commander community, just had a nice compliment. He was listening to us while he was doing some painting, which is nice. He'd been working on some PHR and some Scourge and was trying to decide which one he was going to stick with. I suggested both, like a real hobbyist, because you can always have more. But yeah, look, we want to get more comments, more people to interact with. Please, by all means, if you're enjoying the content, interact with us. Let us talk to you. We're really loving the opportunity to do that. But for now, I believe there might be some news.
I believe there's some news.
Newly received or noteworthy information, especially about recent or important events.
It still makes me giggle on the inside.
So, Battle for Earth is officially out. It's been out for
2 weeks.
What, a week and a half? 2 weeks? It was coming out like the day that we recorded from memory. So yeah, it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I've received my book now. I know that you haven't, unless things changed.
I have not actually purchased one due to other real life issues like finishing the hobby desk. You know that the stuff still isn't cheap, regardless of the fact I found a U.S. shipper. So
no, that's fair. And that was probably a higher priority at that point too. The book, it's 300 and something pages. It's the heaviest book rules-wise that doesn't have a hard cover that I've had in quite a while. It's got some decent heft to it, which doesn't surprise me, but I don't know, when it's a soft cover, you don't really expect it to be heavy, if that makes sense.
In defense of the book, it does have 2 game systems in it, so.
Oh, yes, I'm not complaining about the fact that it's a big book. But in saying that, TT Combat have stated a couple of things. They've confirmed that there will be a mini rulebook coming with just the Dropzone Commander stuff, because there's been people asking for one that's just that without all the fluff. And they have also stated that it's going to be a living rulebook document. They reference Space James because there's a few typing errors that slip through the cracks and stuff. And of course, Space James is a callback to the Drop Fleet game.
It was Traffic James.
Traffic James, was it? Yeah, you're right, it was. Sorry. They made a reference to him anyway. But the mini rule book, when it comes out, will have the corrections and the online. They're referring to them as apps, but to me, an app is something that gets on your mobile phone as opposed to a section of a website. But the apps will be updated with version numbers and stuff so that you know that you're looking at the most recent of whatever you're looking at. So it's good, positive stuff. I know that I haven't really played with the app myself, the army builder. I haven't played with it yet. I've heard that it's a little bit finicky and still needs some work at the moment, which is fine. It's only just been released. Have you had a chance to play with it at all?
I have not. All of my computer playtime has been work related, and so when you work on a computer all day, what's the last thing you want to do when you go home from?
Relax and have fun. No?
No, work on a computer.
Right.
And so
yeah.
So based on what I've seen people talking about, there's been a lot of excitement, especially on the Dropzone side of the community, because Dropzone didn't get so much love for so long because Dropfleet came out and Dropfleet was getting all the love. And so there's a lot of excitement on the Dropzone side because it's new, it's shiny. They finally got something. And, not to say Dropfleet didn't get anything, because, I mean, now we have a one-stop resource for, all the new ships that we were having to go for online, which I was mildly disappointed in because I was talking to one of the few players left in town where I live that still plays Dropfleet. He hadn't looked at any of the Dreadnought rules, and I was just like, they're not here anymore. So,
yeah.
But I will say, I think it's great for the game, especially Dropzone specifically, because it's been so long since it's had anything, and it's just gotten a huge thing. So it's good. It's good for the game, and it's good for the community, and hopefully, a little bit of a reinvigoration happens, and it becomes bigger again.
Like in the last couple of years, it's kind of been drip fed things here and there. Like they had those, like the neutral enemy creatures type things where they could just randomly attack anyone or something. I haven't really played. I've only had a couple of games, but like random creatures that could attack either, or that maybe it's part of the scenario where you're supposed to take them out or something. And but this is the first significant development, and that was by design because they were working on version 2 anyway, and they couldn't just release all these rules that were about to be completely rewritten. So I understand why they weren't doing too much, but it's good that Dropzone can kind of come back in to itself again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I can, I may try to get a book. I hope TT Combat can move. Not to say there's something to be said about a physical copy of a book and just being able to flip through it super quick and finding stuff. But I have
a feeling you're going where I want to go.
I also like having the digital PDF of a book that is on my iPad. So I literally carry my one iPad and I have every single book I need. So I could take 2 Sigmar armies and 1 40k army for a day of gaming at the store, and I just take the iPad and I have all of my stuff there. I have my army builder, I have all my rules, all there in one device.
Yep, I purchased a tablet for this exact reason. I love my physical books, and although I'm not buying as many of them as I used to, there is still certain game systems where I want them. This being one of them. Malifaux is likely to be another. But just I travel on a motorbike, for those that don't know, and it's a weight and a damage that I don't really need in with my models. But Lewis, if you guys are going to move in that direction, there's lots of resources that you can get access to. That means that you don't have to deal with the digital side of the sales too.
Are you talking to Lewis or Louis? Because despite them being,
it's Lewis that listens from memory.
It's Lewis that listens, and then Louis that is the other one. So I just want to, because I remember we got called out on that one time by them.
Yeah, no, it's Lewis that I'm referring to. But look, I will happily give you money. I will give you money. Just let me buy it, please.
And also, I will say this: you make one digital copy, and then you make copies of it, and you just have the copies protected, and you sell them at a 25% discount. You're still making money.
Yeah, you put them on drive-through or RPG or something like that, so it can't get ripped off.
Yeah, and you're making money off of nothing physical. Just saying.
They're making money off something that I mean, you'd have to go through and add bookmarks and stuff to it probably, but realistically, you're making money on almost no work. It just makes sense to me. Diversify the income. It's only going to help the business.
And reduce the resources you need.
That too.
the paper to make the books, that paper does cost money. The ink, that costs money. The binding, that costs money. The shipping cost of the actual physical book itself, that costs your customer money. A digital copy, buy it, download, you have it, done.
I still have 2 copies of the rulebook here, I think, because somebody hasn't picked up their stuff yet.
You have my address, right, Bruce?
Yes, but then I don't think the guy would be very happy.
He just had to come to my house.
Moving on from TT Combat, though.
Yes, moving on. 40K Apocalypse is here.
Oh, yes, Apocalypse. Yep.
Bruce put down Armageddon here. Apocalypse, Armageddon, same thing. It's Apocalypse, though. Thoughts on the detachment boxes? I personally like them because Games Workshop, for the longest time, they didn't do this. They just, here, buy this box. It's actually the same price as buying all the other models. They just realized, hey, you know what? If we can, we do, put all the stuff together and then mark it down, we sell more of this. So,
especially if it's kits that they're not selling many of.
Right. So, will I get one? If I could swing it, I probably definitely want to get a Space Marine one to, quickly, flesh out the Dark Angels army that hasn't started except for half of a Shadow Spear box. And then part of me wants. This is one thing I hate about this hobby is I want to do a Necron army, but I will say this: if I do a Necron army, I will have that thing painted in a month because Necrons are stupid easy, especially with contrast now.
Yeah.
And Tyranids. I think with the contrast and some of the experimentation, which I'll talk about, you could do, and plus it's bugs. It's Starship Troopers. That's what Space Marines and Tyranids are. That's what it is. I mean,
yeah, big time. They may try to hide it, but it is true.
So, are these the detachment boxes? Are these what was making you think about getting back into the 40K universe?
I wasn't looking at getting back into 40K. No. Yeah, well,
I saw you say something. Oh no, kill team. You're talking about doing a kill team first and then expanding from there.
Basically, me and my mate Tom had been discussing this kill team for quite a while because, as I've mentioned before, I'm building a Kroot kill team. That has now expanded into a Catachan kill team as well. Because I've always liked the Catachans. They just look cool. And after talking for a bit, he got me thinking, he's like, you know what? There's part of me that wants to try getting back in, but I'm not saying that I'm back in yet. If I do, I'm about 90% sure I know which direction I'm going in, which for people that know me will probably not be surprising and maybe is slightly disappointing to hear because it will involve Blood Angels.
I was going to say, Bruce, I was going to say, if you say Tau, the podcast would be called Getting Tabled with the Yanks, and I would just cut ties with you.
No. See, I've always loved the Kroot. I originally brought Tau back before they were powered in previous editions, only because I wanted to play with Kroot. It's not that I don't like the Tau models, but the way that Tau plays irritates me. I don't like playing like that. But in saying that, it would be Blood Angels and Imperial Guard that I would likely go in. I would probably do the Loyal 32 with Blood Angels, and I would just add things here and there so that I could diversify the list. I definitely would want to. I would run a Russ for sure, but yeah. I really don't know at this point. I don't know enough about the current editions to know what works and what doesn't. I know that Blood Angels are considered like really good at the moment, and that Astra Militarum is as well, or as I said, Imperial Guard. I really don't know at this point, and there's way too many other things that's more important than 40K. As far as
I will tell you this, Bruce. If you're wanting to do a Space Marine army, you'll be doing a Space Marine army purely for the fact that you enjoy the army, the chapter history and that stuff. If you want to do tournaments or anything like that, don't look at them because since the Space Marines have the same core, they can't make too many changes because then you get the Codex creep, serious issue and stuff like that. So things like the Tyranid and the Imperial Guard and the more, this one army, they tend to have the more neat stuff because it's just the one army. It's not 15 chapters in one army kind of thing. So
Yeah. Blood Angels are their own entity as well, though. Apparently, from the research I've been doing, Blood Angels actually have some bite again, and this is the first time in 3 editions where they had some bite. I'm sorry, they were not powerful in 6. Stop arguing. They weren't. They got defeated by everybody. They had strong characters, but they were not a powerful army.
yeah, but I mean, 7th edition Space Wolves were better in melee than Blood Angels, and Blood Angels were supposed to be a melee shop.
That's because they got nerfed. Like they were already a weak army and they got weaker in 7th edition. That's one of the reasons I stopped playing, because there was no fun involved anymore. It wasn't just because it was all weak, but it was also that happened exactly the same time as the Infinite tournament that we'd happened. That release was on that week. And so I was saying goodbye to the previous edition, and the new one came out, and I had it in my hand, and I was like, "There's no reason to play anymore, because there's nothing worth putting on the table." And there wasn't. There was nothing worth putting on the table. I had thousands of dollars of Blood Angels that there was no point playing a game with.
Now I will say this though. These boxes, they do appeal to me on a completely different level, especially with having my son, who I'm trying to get into the games and stuff.
Yeah,
is if I could get 2 marine, a marine, a chaos, a Necron, and just have those boxes set aside, put them together, paint them, and all that stuff, and it's just like, hey, what army do you want to play? We pull them out and play with them. Just that little detachment, and not buying,
and it's a rather
6 units of this.
If you have if you had just a Space Marine army, or let's go Tyranids. If you had just a Tyranid army and it was okay, and it's like, we want to play some Apocalypse, but I really need some more stuff, you could buy a box of monsters and you're playing Apocalypse. And they're not that expensive, really. And you're getting it. I mean, you're not getting a huge discount, but it's fairly decent as far as G-Dub's concerned. They don't often do many.
You're getting at least 2 units for free, essentially, almost.
Something like that, yeah. I would say that the Primera Space Marine one, to me, feels a little lackluster. Because it feels very generic. It's not really a focused box like the other ones are. However,
that's because the Primaris are still very generic at this point.
Yes, and they don't actually have a box or a start collecting thing either. This is the first one they've had.
Yeah, well, no, second one.
What was the first start collecting one?
It was like one of the $85 ones. It had like the jump pack guys, a couple intercessors, some hellblasters, and they were all easy to build. They were the colored plastic, so you didn't have to paint them. And guy I play with, he got one of those because they were a good price and they were Primaris. So
yeah, that's fair. But I think they're doing well on this. I mean, I've never, and I said this previously as well, I've never really enjoyed a game of Apocalypse. I get what the enjoyment factor is for most people, but it's just, when I've played it in the past, it's never really done anything for me because it's just been a bigger game of 40k. I was like, well, why didn't I just play 40k? The thing that's changing with this release is that they apparently are designing it so that it's not just another game of 40k. They're actually changing some stuff so that it feels different. So that's something I'm excited to see. Obviously, I'm not going to be playing it because I don't have any 40k models, but I'm interested to see how it goes.
I will tell you why Apocalypse is awesome, and this is my personal opinion. You're not getting together with one buddy to play a game. You're getting together with 5 to 7 other buddies to play a game. And because different armies do different things and time constraints and stuff like that, there's going to be the 15, 20 minutes where you can stand around and BS with a couple of buddies while your other buddies are moving their army. And then you do their stuff, and then they can BS. And it's like a club meeting, but you're playing a game instead.
Yeah, that's fair. We did it for
and
Christmas
it lasts all day. So
yeah, quite literally. Apart from if you're me, because I got kicked off the table in like the first hour ish
buy
because I
Australian
didn't have as
dice
much as
then.
everybody else. No, I just didn't have my army at that point was still very small, so there wasn't as much to take out.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Do we want anything next from 40K? I want more Primarchs for the Astartes. We got Robot, and that's it.
Yeah. Robert Gullyman was awesome, but I would like to see someone, whether it's the Lion. I really don't think it's going to be the Lion. I'm sorry. I really don't think that's the direction they're going to go. I think Lehman is more likely. I know that there's a section of the community that want Sanguinius, but I really feel like that would destroy the narrative and take away the meaningful part of the character by bringing him back. For me, I want to see them redo some of the really old stuff. I want to see them redo the Avatar of the Bloody Hand God. I want to see them redo the Catachans, because as much as from that age, it's still the best kit they put out at that time. The arms don't fit the models properly. None of those arms fit the models properly. I want to see them redo. I want to see a proper codex for the Catachans as their own entity again. There's no reason why they shouldn't have one. None at all.
Well, as I mentioned, I'm starting a Dark Angels army. Not too crazy. It's going to be about like my Space Wolves, not too crazy. So I want to see the Lion and the Wolf come back so that I can do a friendly game with a friend with Dark Angels and Space Wolves, and do the stratagem, the Lion and the Wolf, and then ask my friend, would it be okay if the actual Lion and the Wolf were the receiving of the effects from the Lion and the Wolf stratagem?
Yeah. That would make sense.
Okay, and then next on the list, Bruce has found a Kickstarter.
This is a Kickstarter I've actually backed.
It's like a monster wrestling kind of thing, almost.
Yeah,
No?
pretty much. It's like arena fighting. So it's for 2 to 4 players. It's really fast, 30 to 40 minutes, and there's no dice, which means it's going to suit me very well. Because what do all dice hate?
They hate
Bruce. Yes. Apart from D10s. D10s seem to like me, which we'll talk more about later.
So this is very interesting. So, how familiar are you with a TCG? Like Magic the Gathering and stuff like that.
Yeah, there is one that I play, but it's not Magic the Gathering.
Okay. Well, so I'm looking at the Kickstarter. First of all, I love the minis on this. That dwarf. I want that dwarf. So I could put him into an actual dwarf army if the scale is right. It doesn't look like it is because circular base is 45 millimeters. So it'd be a giant dwarf.
These things are big.
But I just scrolled down and I looked at the cards associated with the game, and I'd be really interested to see who's doing the design, because some of the emblems and the artwork mimics that exactly of the World of Warcraft card game that was out a decade ago.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I think that they're a French company. I know that. They do have people elsewhere, but they're mainly a French company. This has been done by the same people that brought the Joan of Arc tabletop game last year. It's being delivered now. They did the Solomon Kane one semi-recently, and Reichbusters, which is like a pulp, like think the Predator, but killing Nazis and monsters. They actually have some background in this sort of area. And this is an arena battle type thing, very much along the lines of the Judgment game for people that have seen or played that before. It has a very similar feel, but the mechanics are very different.
So the one thing I'm liking about, I'm reading this, so pledge $50 for the US.
Yep.
Or $50 US. Ships anywhere in the world. You get the core box, all unlocked rewards, and game trays, exclusive box layout. So stuff to carry the minis in and stuff like that. And then for $90 US, you get the Master Wizard box, which is the core box, unlocked rewards, the game trays, the Neo kit, the sleeve kit, and Force of Nature expansion. And looking at this is looking like it's a board game that has minis.
Yeah, pretty much. They're designing it as a board game for minis, and unlike their previous games, this one's actually going to hit retail as well. It's not just Kickstarter exclusive, although there is exclusives in it, but it's more just alternate type
I
stuff.
may have to get on board with this one.
I am on board with this. I've gone for the Master Wizard one just so that I can get everything at a really cheap price. I just thought it was worth looking at. This campaign has, at time of recording, done.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to mention. Yeah, they had a $30,000 goal.
They had a $30,000 goal. They're currently at $315,249 US. They've done that in 4 days. This is a 7-day campaign.
Oh God, so I have to go now. Crab cakes. Okay.
Keep in mind you've got the 7 days after the thing to actually pay for your thing if you don't have enough money yet.
Yeah. I mean the minis look beautiful. It's just I mean, and the way they're detailed, I mean, you wouldn't have to paint them, but then if you did paint them,
because things are tight, obviously, the other option would be to pledge at the $1 level and then add stuff later when the pledge manager comes out.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, God, this looks so good.
Yeah. It looks like a lot of fun. Obviously, you guys can't see what we're looking at. The game is called Super Fantasy Brawl on Kickstarter. By the time this podcast goes live, assuming we don't have more technical issues like we did last time, you should still have a data pledge. You should still have a data pledge and have a look at it. It's very cartoony, over the top type look. It's very fluffy. It's quite nice.
I would say the animation style is very that of, like I said, the World of Warcraft trading card game. There's something else I can't quite put my finger on that it looks like.
It feels fluffy, but without going chibi, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, like there's an animated thing. Okay. It looks like a very It looks like, it reminds me of Kung Fu Panda type animation, but up a notch.
Actually, yes. Yeah, actually, yeah. I'll agree with you on that.
If you look at the thing, the badger looking thing with the hood and stuff like that,
yeah,
that guy could totally be in a Kung Fu Panda movie, no problem. The tiger thing, I mean, that already looks kind of like the tiger from. They look great. I'm gonna have to see what I can do to get up on this because
You're welcome. We also got news this week of the hinted at Infinity Dungeon Crawler is incoming. We've seen some 3D sculpts of the minis that will be coming with that, and that will be coming to Kickstarter this year. We don't have dates at this point. I want to say this is Corvus Belli's first Kickstarter. I could be wrong. But I don't think they themselves have done one. I know there was someone that did a role-play game on their behalf, but I think this is Corvus Belli's first actual Kickstarter. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. There's been a lot of people interested in an Infinity Dungeon Crawler. I would be very keen on that idea, but I already have a lot of Infinity stuff that never comes out of storage. So we will see.
Yeah, I don't even do Infinity because I have a Wormhordes army that hasn't seen the light of day in almost 3 years.
Yeah, that happens. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was Malifaux's 3rd edition is finally here. After all of the talk and all of the waiting, 3rd edition for Malifaux is here. And the full rulebook and cards were leaked 2 days early by... wait for it, Weird themselves. They just went, oh, oops, here's like they did it on purpose, but they just kind of played it off like, oh, oops, looks like we've accidentally leaked it. Oh, well, here you go.
Well,
so
you
they've
know,
just fully put
you know
it
what?
out
It
there.
builds
and-
hype. It builds hype.
Build time? What?
Builds hype.
Build type.
Builds.
Oh, hype. Yes.
Hype.
Yep. I get you.
Are you having trouble comprehending the English language? 'Cause you thought I said secretly when I said securely earlier.
Well, it's not my fault that you type things in ways that don't make sense. Also, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. So, what do you expect?
It was not 2 o'clock in the morning. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning.
Was that this morning, not last night?
It was this morning. Maybe it was last
Oh.
night. I don't know.
I'm
Who
pretty
knows?
sure it was last night. Anyway, so yeah, Weird themselves have revealed the full rulebook. You can download it for free on their website. They've also revealed all of the stat cards for the characters, including the Dead Men one, because there's actually armies that, and single tear rolling down my cheek, are gone. Because I wanted to play with Collodi. I built and painted him, and it's still arguably one of my proudest things I've ever painted myself. And I never actually had a chance to play with him because I was playing with everything else first, and now I never can. So I'm having a sucky moment. But I can play with him because I've actually done rules for it, which is good. Am I excited? No, I'm completely bored by this entirely. Of course I'm excited. I've been waiting for this for quite a while. It hasn't hit Australia yet as far as the physical product is concerned, but it is expected to hit July. I want it to say mid-July. It could be late. It depends. But yeah, so if you are one of these people that don't want to buy physical books, you can obtain it properly. If you would like to support Weird and actually pay for it, it will be going on to, I want to say, Drive-Through RPG. I could be wrong. Next week, I believe. They didn't say what day, but it will be next week. I haven't looked at the app yet. I don't know if the app has been updated. Otherwise, if you want a physical copy of the book, it should be in US stores already, or you can order it from them directly if your store doesn't cover it. They are a US company, so it should be available in the US before everyone else.
And what a holy crap! What a episode we're having, because we're 45 minutes in. We're just finishing the news.
Yeah. So last week I touched on the idea of having a discussion around toxic gaming environments. We're going to skip that this week and wait for some more incoming thoughts. And we will get on to hobby time and game talk.
Dream, blue, prime, paint.
Bruce has been building a kill team.
I have been building up my Kroot and a secret second force that I've already kind of ruined because I realized I kind of talked about that earlier. I've built up my Kroot. Everything is built at this point. I also went out and bought Kroot hounds, despite the fact that I'm still not 100% sure how I would use them in game. There's talk within the kill team communities about using them to help shield your Krootox, but I'm not entirely sure how that works at this point because I thought you could just pick what you want to shoot at, unless it's to try and stop charges into him, I guess. And otherwise, yeah, I'm also building a Catachan kill team. Why Catachans? Because they're better than Cadia. Just look at them. They're awesome. I mean, their arms don't fit properly, but they're awesome. It's Rambo with space guns. What's not awesome about that? And what's not Rambo is Arnold Schwarzenegger from Predator. There's nothing that's not awesome about that. It's 80s movies in miniature form.
Arguably some of the greatest movies ever.
Yep. You've only got to look at how many times they've tried to recapture the magic from those original movies and failed to know how awesome the original ones were.
I would say the only one that they actually have succeeded at, because they went to modern equivalents, was the Red Dawn remake.
The Red Dawn one was interesting. I do think the modern Rambos have looked good, but they're very different from the original movie. But they've stayed true. I want to see the new Rambo when it comes out. That the new Rambo is looking really good.
Anyways, enough digressing.
Yes. So I have a Catachan force. I brought a box of jungle fighters and a command squad. And then I went online and found some alternate plasmas. Because for those that don't know, if you're running Imperial Guard, you are running plasma spam. Or you're replacing the plasmas with fire and more fire, depending on what you're facing, obviously. Or you're not playing at all, because that's the way that you build your team. I've also been looking for some third-party head options to help represent the Scions and stuff, because I'm not buying Scion models. I'm sorry, but I don't want them. I'm building Catachans. So I had originally found some slouch hat, like the Aussie-style slouch hats from World War II and stuff, but they're just that little bit out of scale, and it could pass, but it's just that little bit small where it's obvious that it's too small and it irritates me. So I snapped them all off because they were resin, so I could just snap them off and trim them again. And I ordered some more from another company that are long hair and beards. So I'm going to paint them up to look like they're just grizzled veterans with grey hair, because that kind of makes sense for Catachans, I think.
Well,
So that's been the most of mine. I have brought a couple of more things. I also now have the new, well, it's not actually new, but the Thankwall and Bone Ripper, the newer version of it. So I now have the original metal and the new version, because I want to use the original metal one as just regular Grey Seers and Rat Ogres, and I want the original one, so the plastic one, for the model, because it's awesome. But it's still in box. I haven't touched it yet. I'm not allowed to touch it yet till I build more stuff and paint more stuff.
which is what I've been trying to do.
Yeah, you've been working on an Iron Puppy.
Yes, since the hobby space is finished, I added something to it this Friday. I added a webcam that is now perfectly aligned onto my cutting pad, so right in the middle of my work area. And so hopefully we can increase the hobby time into, some live stream sessions, some hangout and ask questions. I mean, I am by no means a pro painter. I am not some of the skill that some people see, but I'm pretty decent and I can give some pretty good ideas. Even if I haven't done it, I have ideas. So, I was looking at the camera view and everything, and I was like, well, let me do some test recording. So I was working on the Iron Puppy, and I got the claw cover finished, and then I had a bit of an epiphany. So I was gonna do like the frame, the chassis as black, and then hit it with a dry brush of silver to give it some edges and everything. But I don't like the bright silver under chassis that I see on a lot of knights, which makes sense because it's the under chassis, it's metal. I didn't want that bright. I wanted it more dark and dirty, like my Space Wolves are. They're dark and dirty because this is war. Things are filthy and dirty. Trust me, you get filthy and dirty when you're out there doing that stuff. And I got to thinking, we have this new contrast paint. So I painted the actual claw itself. I painted it lead filter, the end all of silvers made by GW, because it's so great. Painted the claw that's silver, took the Black Templar contrast, thinned it down 2:1, brushed it on. I then went out and bought a spray can of lead belcher to spray the chassis so I can put the Black Templar all over the chassis, because it gives it the perfect dark, almost black gray, metallic look.
I'm liking what I'm hearing so far.
Yeah, so that's what I've been working on. I unfortunately have discovered that Shapeways, the company where that I ordered the 3D printed parts from for the Iron Wolf, like the shoulder pads, the head, the frost cannon, the clear plastic they use, while it is great for doing lighting effects, which I am doing on the Iron Wolf, that plastic is a pain in the butt to completely cover to block light from all the edges.
That would make sense.
And not where you want the light.
For those wondering, the reason he's doing light effects is because it's Michelle's fault. Michelle made him do it by showing him a link once, and therefore it's all Michelle's fault.
It is, and it will look amazing once I can get all the edges on the frost cannon covered. I've got the head taken care of. I'm actually going to try to scrape some paint to add a little more light on the head, like the little muzzle whiskers and some vents on the side of it. Everything else is, but the Frostwolf cannon, especially with the blue light, it's going to be quite tedious. But I did discover scraping the paint and everything, and I was leaving. You know how you scrape plastic? You get the marring lines. Yeah, it kind of stands out. If you take a Q-tip and dip it in acetone and then kind of paint that exposed plastic with the acetone, those lines go away, and it softens it and allows for softer light dispersal instead of like pinpoint light dispersal.
Oh, nice. Yes, much better.
So I inadvertently improved the lighting on the Frostwolf cannon. Yeah. So I also I do not know how much, because a lot of it's on back order, but I am getting at least another unit of Volkite Berserkers, 2 units of Hearthguard Berserkers, 2 units of the other ones, the shooty ones, and then Grimwrath Berserker and the other heroes for Fire Slayers coming in.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like you've had a fairly productive week. Well, couple of days, not week, because everything else has been going on during the week.
Yeah. So
I have a suggestion on the Iron Puppy, by the way.
Yeah. Shoot.
Because you're going for a dirty, this has been through war look, there needs to be some graffiti on there that says Iron Puppy that clearly has been written by someone that's trying to piss the pilot off.
Well, I do not disagree with that statement. That would involve me doing some freehand. I might do it. On the other hand, though, I am
buy a Sharpie, use a Sharpie, not your brush.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this Imperial Knight is the biggest thing I've actually painted, believe it or not.
No, I believe it.
So it's a little daunting to, so I've been trying to, focus on doing one piece. Okay, let that dry. Move on to another piece, and trying to get all the detail done on all the pieces before I do final assembly. And every time I'm looking at it, it's just like, oh my God, I have so much more to do. The gold that I selected for my Space Wolves, that when you get the washover with the Nolan oil, that looks, in my opinion, just perfect. It is such a pain to paint on such large areas.
Okay. Oh, because it comes out all poorly and stuff.
Right, even using my jigsaw to shake it up and make sure it's completely and fully mixed, and just getting it thin so that it applies smoothly with as few brush lines as possible. There's a couple places where I've had to do 4 layers.
Yeah.
But yeah, look in the future for some live stream of hobby, and we're just starting this out and trying it out and everything. I think Bruce is going to jump in on this too, but at some point I would love to get to where I've got one camera focused on the work area so you can see what I'm doing, and then I want to have another camera that where I can look into it and interact with you, the listener, while you're asking questions and while I'm answering them, and really and just build a really good hobby community.
And that's the important thing about this. Trying to achieve hobby by yourself gets really hard. Having a community of people around you, whether it's physical or not. If you're on Facebook, join a couple of groups. Join the Warhammer Age of Sigmar fan group. Join the group about your particular army. Actually share what you're doing with people. Get some feedback. Get some suggestions. Don't feed the trolls.
Don't be a troll.
It makes things a lot easier. Don't be a troll too, but there's no way we're stopping that.
So, and unless you're doing a troll army, then okay, you're just a troll then at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'm liking what I'm seeing from your Iron Puppy so far. Definitely keen to see what it looks like when it's all together. I do like the black metal. Yeah, pretty much. I still haven't got my contrast paints yet because I'm still not sure what I'm buying. I've kind of been doing everything else but that.
So I will say this, and especially since you have an airbrush, I'm assuming you have Flow Improver laying around.
Yep.
So if you're working with the darker contrast paints, I would highly recommend thinning them out 2 to 1.
Otherwise, and using Flow Improver, not just their own stuff.
Why bother? So just go get yourself an eyedropper and drop out the contrast paint. and then grab your bottle of flow prover. I have Vallejo, so it already has like a built-in dropper into this huge giant bottle, so I can just I can count out my drops and get a good mixture ratio going. And the darker stuff, it's in my opinion, it's too thick and heavy. My opinion is the contrast. So I think, for someone like my 12-year-old, learning to paint, it'll be a great place for him to start to paint and build confidence, because it is easy to use if you don't know a lot of the skills and techniques that you develop doing the hobby. Once you have developed those skills and techniques of thinning your paint, small brush strokes, and stuff like that, you have to unlearn how to paint in order to paint with contrast, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. But again, it wasn't specifically designed for us, really. We are finding ways of using it, but it's, though, to be fair, it's also allowing you to achieve a lot of things that you probably wouldn't have had the time for otherwise too.
You saw my Shaltari, and they had a blue metallic look, and I'm doing the color shift paint on the Shaltari. That's something else in my backlog that I need to work on again here. To get the color shift is giving me the opportunity to give it a more actual metallic look. I wanted that kind of look for my Iron Wolf, but I wanted it to be dark. I wanted it to be metallic, but I wanted it to be dark. And painting it lead belcher and then covering it in coats of Nolan oil, it doesn't quite give it that same effect, because as you do that, you get more and more of the Nolan oil pooling up in areas, and you have black blotches. This contrast. And so when I'm actually spraying the Iron Wolf right now, so as we speak. I think I got like one more coat to do, and I should be ready. I'm actually going to thin out the contrast, load it into my airbrush, and try to airbrush it on into an even coat.
Yep.
And then
I'll be keen to see how that looks.
And then just hit it with a dry brush, to grab the edges and highlights.
I've seen, there's already been people talking about using it that way, but I'm yet to actually see results through an airbrush. So keen to see how that actually looks.
I saw one video, and it goes on evenly. So it's essentially like a layer paint. You do get some what's the word? You do get some pooling in the deeper areas, and you do get some highlight in the higher areas. But it's more of an even coat, which, doing that with a wash, it looked terrible. But with this, with all of its heavy pigment, it's a more desirable effect now. So,
yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah. Shall we move on to game talk?
Talk nerdy to me.
Alrighty, so you've been playtesting the game.
Yeah, it's the same one that I was playtesting the other week, that I shared pictures of. So at this stage, it's called Project Terra Nova. It's actually being developed by a friend of mine. So, hi, Dave. Dave has kind of had this idea in his head for quite a while, and it's at the point where it's ready to be tested, and it's being on the tabletop. It's reached the point where they're starting to actually give units points and stuff, as opposed to just testing how they work. So they're testing the actual balance of the game. That's why I'm saying it's at alpha stage, because they're testing the balance and stuff. Well, I suppose that's probably more beta than alpha, really, if you're getting to the balance side of the game. I'm genuinely really enjoying it. It's at a 15mm scale. It's sci-fi. I'm not going to go into the depths of the lore, but basically humans went out in search of a new planet. This particular planet basically forced them to crash land, and now for some reason they can't seem to get back off the planet. It's kind of a cool idea. They had like these cyborg things that were working for them that have kind of gone rogue. There's another race of advanced squid people, aliens living underwater. And there's also another army that is essentially the plant life on this planet is sentient, and is treating all the other armies like an infection or a virus. It's got some cool ideas. All of the models are designed to be modular. So there's like 6 or 7 different items with each army, but each of those items you can pick which armor it's wearing, which weapons it's using, and so on and so forth. Like it's a completely modular game system. which is a cool idea because it's genuinely unique. A lot of it counts as stuff at this point because it's a beta stage. So a lot of the models that have been done are 3D printed. There's some stuff that's been pinched from the Flames of War range because it looks right, just so that there's things to represent what's on the table. Uses D10s, and I was having a game with a friend of ours, Tony. I was playing as the cyborgs because I always seem to play as the humans. And so, George, you know what dice do to me?
They roll ones. Did you write this game so the ones are good?
No. He didn't write the game like that. But I essentially tabled Tony off the table. I rolled that well and he rolled that poorly that after the end of the third round, the only things he had left on the table were completely useless to him. It did not go very well for him. He made a couple of poor placement decisions and left himself open. And just as he got me to the point where he was going to be able to take out the things that were doing all the damage, he ran out of things to fire with. And then I used what was left to take out the last threats I really had on the board. And yeah, so it did go in a very heavy one direction, but we're not convinced that it was because of the weight of the armies at that point. Though I do feel that one army was built better than the other, just because one had a very strong theme and the other one was kind of... Dave built one list and our friend Tom built the other. And Tom had built a list that was very much anti what the other one was going to build to try and test certain things. And Dave had just been, look, I'm going to try and use these things because I want to see how they work. And it didn't really go that well together, if that makes sense. So there was a sniper rifle that they were trying for the first time because they wanted to see how it worked. And there was a few other things that they were playing with that they just wanted to see how it worked. Whereas I had things that were being tested because they wanted to see how they worked, but they worked very well with the list that I was given as well. And to be fair, this is like the third tabletop game Tony has ever played. He's a Magic player. He's never done tabletop gaming before. So that was definitely an impact as well. So it may not have been the most fair of opponents to put him up against first. I didn't mean to be brutal, though. I was just rolling really well. And I did roll really, really well. It doesn't happen to me. Our listeners from the whole scene know this. But yeah, had fun. It's going well so far.
Well, that's awesome. You know, I mean, the chances of games, you know, they're created and doing something with them, you know, it's infinitesimal. I mean, there's so many good ideas out there, and for it to be good enough and whatnot. So I wish your friend the best of luck. You know, and
yeah,
a good game is a good game, and hopefully, you know, he does design a good game that does pique interest, that, you know, people are willing to back and support and whatnot. So
yeah, it's something that he will eventually be going to Kickstarter with. It's obviously not at that point yet. We actually had people in the store that came to stop by and actually started watching specifically because they were trying to figure out what we were doing, because obviously they didn't recognize anything. But no, it's getting some attention. It's actually getting some good attention, so it's good. And yeah, like I said, that having games like that never happens to me, so I was happy.
Alrighty. Well, I didn't have one, but then it just occurred to me I do have one. So let's do
Yanking the Bruce.
It's been a while since we've had one of those.
You know, well, it just kind of came to me, especially how to word it. So, true or false, Bruce? We have Napoleon to thank for tabletop wargaming as we know it.
You mean to thank?
Yes, like to thank him for being partially responsible for the creation of modern tabletop wargaming as we know.
I want to say false because I thought it came from World War II.
You are incorrect.
Oh, so they just followed on from what he had done earlier then.
So the whole concept of laying out your armies and strategizing, it's been a common military tactic for hundreds of years, you know, troop movements. there was I watched a little video this morning. You got the link to it too, so it's your fault for not watching. But Thunderboy linked us a little video about the birth of wargaming, and a gentleman created a very elaborate, very bespoke wargaming set for a royal, and the royal loved it. They played games and stuff like that. Well, this gentleman's son served in the French army under Napoleon, and took his father's idea and expanded on it using modern cartography to use the maps, and developed the game to where it actually had an extra person that would make it super hard these days to do it for like tournaments. There's the 2 players and an umpire. The player would issue orders to his troops. He would give the orders to the umpire. The umpire would move the troops per the way the orders were written. So it added an aspect of you have to specify and hope that your orders come through the way you intend. He also introduced the random of rolling dice to determine the outcomes of said troop movements and conflict.
Okay, that's interesting. Because I know in World War II they did a lot of this as well. The British did it.
Yeah, well, when this first idea was released that the guy's father did, this royal declared this, this is something that all of our military leaders must do. No, it's Prussia. Sorry, the guy was Prussian. So the guy didn't fight in the Napoleon army. He fought in the Prussian army. But Prussia was very big on it, so they didn't face a humiliating defeat like they did again. That's what it was. But because of Napoleon and the desire to increase, tactical assessments of fighting, we have what is modern tabletop wargaming with dice and maps and terrain features and different identifiers for the units and what the units can do and stuff.
Thanks Napoleon, then.
Yeah, it's the one good thing he did. Oh, and canned food.
Yeah, he also died. That was pretty good.
That was the best thing he did.
So, I think we'll bring an end to it there. We've had a lot to talk about, and thank you guys again for listening. For anybody that is not aware, we will now also be sharing our podcast on YouTube. That is the same place that we will eventually be sharing most of our videos if people would like to go back and watch them afterwards because they're in a different part of the world and can't see them live. It's kind of just the channel for this at this stage, but give us a like, give us a share, and you'll be able to see things as the channel starts to develop into its own kind of thing. Otherwise, the usual places: facebook.com/gettingtabled. Twitter is @gettingtabled. Gettingtabled.weebly.com, I believe, is the website.
That is correct.
What am I missing?
Our email address, which is gettingtabled@gmail.com.
Yes, and YouTube is just do a search for Getting Tabled. We come up as the second result because the first result is our podcast from last week or fortnight.
I think it's odd that you guys still use the term Fortnite. I mean, I know what Fortnite means, but no one here in the U.S. uses Fortnite.
It is a very British thing to say, I think.
I don't even hear a lot of Brits, because obviously I follow a lot of the gaming pages. There's a strong British community in those pages, and I don't see them using it. I see it more from the Australians.
Okay. See, Fortnite, for anybody who doesn't know, is every 2 weeks. Yeah, but I don't know, because I get paid fortnightly, so a lot of things, and the roster is done. I know, my roster's weekly, so I don't know. It's just a thing that gets said frequently, I suppose.
I like it. It's one of those throwback terms that which sounds better, more elegant to use in a sentence. We'll be doing this bi-weekly. You'll be getting paid every fortnight.
Yeah, fortnight does sound better.
I mean, to me, it makes you sound more intelligent, more refined. Now, obviously, if people have listened to this podcast for a while, they know that is not what you are. So,
no, but I still manage to trump you on a daily basis. So,
hey, it doesn't take much.
No, you're only a Marine.
That's right. I'm one of the most uncivilized people in the world.
Hashtag true facts.
All right. Well, let's call this a podcast, and we'll hope to hear from the folks listening in the future.
Definitely. Want to hear more from you guys. Share us around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For listening to Getting Tabled. Music used in this podcast was created by Eric Matthias at soundimage.org.